Okay, today's topic is grooming gangs. Okay, I've seen this going around. Britain's First are the ones responsible for this, to be honest with you. Jada Franson's loved this line, Muslim grooming gangs. And it's happening in Rotherham, it's happening in Telford, it's happening everywhere, Aylesbury, all these places. So it's time to look into this. I've promised this for a while, so here we go, inshallah.
Hamza Myatt. I'm sorry that the systematic rape of at least 46 adolescents with the possibility of a total number as high as 1,510 adolescents dating back 40 years in Rochdale alone is an inconvenience to you. But maybe, just fucking maybe, you could show a little more decorum in discussing the matter, dropping the whole fake procession and the EDL shit. Now, I don't doubt for a second that the EDL is using what happened to fuel the fires of hate, but if you want to fight that, then you bloody well need to show some damn respect for the victims and their families who spent years attempting to get police to act. Now, you're privileged in the fact that I'm not here to spin narratives others are spinning about people with certain ethnic backgrounds. I'm not here to profit on the backs of those who suffered. Had I been, I would have put something out on the topic a long time ago. I'm here for one reason and one reason alone. As a survivor of childhood rape, I'm here to assess your actions on the matter, to see how you respond to a very clear issue of certain communities lacking security to protect the most vulnerable in society. Let's get on with it.
Okay, the first thing we have to know is, what is a grooming gang? What is a grooming gang? What does it mean? Are there people who go around grooming people? What do we mean grooming gang? Basically, what a grooming gang is this. It's a group of men, starts off maybe with one individual, who will seek out a vulnerable girl. And when he's found his victim, he will then behave in a manner showing love to that girl, in the sense of giving her gifts. Then he may offer alcohol, cigarettes and such. Once he gains that girl's trust, that's when he'll move in and invite friends and such. And before we know it, we have a girl who is a victim of a gang who are abusing and raping her and plying her with alcohol and drugs. This is what a grooming gang, this is how the grooming is, the sense of it starts off as nice, lovey-dovey, friendly, showing a bit of caring for her. And then they slowly slip into the grip of these people, thinking, I mean, you could even call it Stockholm Syndrome, where they truly believe these people love them because they're giving them gifts of alcohol and giving them free drugs and such. But then by the time they get down to what happens at the end, it's too late, they're gone. So this is a grooming gang, this is what they do.
I feel you put a little too much focus on the gifting that occurred in some of these instances, since it's the psychological manipulation that occurred in all of these instances that can very often be the stronger catch, especially with younger people who may not have had healthy long-term relationships by that point in life, possibly due to family restrictions on relationships, so they're unable to identify an unhealthy relationship by comparison to said healthy relationship. It's just something to consider in what you're saying.
And it doesn't just happen with Muslims. It happens through schools. It happens through care homes. It happens in all sports. We found it in football. We found it in athletic. We found it. We know it happens. Yeah, we know, young actresses who want to be stars. They're preyed upon by men who can offer such things that they think they have some kind of advantage or some kind of love from this people. Okay.
Nobody has claimed that grooming gangs are a Muslim-only crime. The real controversy in this instance is not over the fact that child rapists exist and that the majority of those in these instances were Muslim, but rather the sheer extent of the abuses and how long it has been going on for, even though police have been receiving reports of said abuse for years and yet they did absolutely nothing. That is the issue. There is a real discussion to be had as to whether the fears of being classed as a racist played a role in how these matters were handled. Again, family members of the victims would go into their local police stations and beg for the police to do something, and the police failed to act sufficiently. The issue is so extensive that the government has had to allocate £17.9 million to an inquiry, working through the current 1,510 suspected victims in Rochdale. As for the air quotations around Muslims, the vast majority, i.e. 80% of the Rochdale and similar groups, are not only British Pakistani, but belong to Islamic communities. This includes Qari Abdul Raif, aged 47, who was a religious studies teacher at a local mosque in Rochdale. He served a mere 3 years for first trafficking and then also raping a 15-year-old girl. Raif, father of 5, describes himself as not just a Muslim, but a deeply religious Muslim. And as you can probably guess, the short sentencing and the fact that it was cut in half, he was supposed to serve 6 years, he only did 3, has only fed the controversy.
So this is a grooming, but we're going to stick specifically to these Muslim grooming gangs because that's the one that Jada Franson bangs on about. She doesn't worry about if white men are raping girls. She only cares about brown men that rape girls. So we'll focus on that. Okay.
Jada Franson is a piece of shit, but that doesn't matter. The fact that you are using this time, which is supposed to be about you discussing real issues, to attack said person is fucking sick. Jada Franson is not the only one to take issue with a rape gang that has been allowed to exist unchallenged for 40 years. So how about you stop pretending like they are? As someone who has tackled rape apologetics from all areas, I wonder what you've got to say about me taking issue with it. Either way, keep to the fucking point.
First of all, Muslim grooming gang. Okay. First of all, this doesn't make any sense. Muslim is an action. It's what you do. It's not an identity. Okay? If you do Islam, you're a Muslim. I get that. Okay. Now, when you call someone a Muslim grooming gang, you're implying that the people who do this act are acting in the name of Islam or acting according to the teachings of Islam. And this couldn't be farther from the truth. Especially Jada Franson knows, as she found out with EFDawah, a Muslim man cannot shake the hand of a woman who isn't related to him, whether it's a mother, his daughter, his wife, or whatever, sister, whatever. He cannot touch her, cannot shake her hand. And we get mocked for this. Ali was mocked for this. Laura Southern did it to him as well. Oh, shake your hand, Ali. Knowing he wouldn't do it. Knowing Islam prohibits this. And you mock us for it. You say we're backwards for this. Because we won't touch the hand of a woman. Well, to be honest with you, we can't be victims of what men are being accused of now. Yeah? Me too. This idea that men have been touching women inappropriately. We can't even shake their hands. Okay, so the first thing is, as a Muslim, I cannot shake the hand of a woman. So I certainly cannot rape her.
Based on your personal cherry-picked perspective of the Qur'an, perhaps. The problem emerges in that the Qur'an is a religious text, and as a religious text, it is internally inconsistent. You can pretty much get the Qur'an to say whatever you wish it to say about a lot of moral standards, but what's more dangerous is that you can then set said standard and claim it to be divinely ordained. Again, among the rapists were religious teachers of Islam. You're just a guy who hangs out in a park every weekend having people run circles around you as you just repeat the same old unfounded assertions again and again. The Qur'an, chapter 23, verses 5 through 6, reads, and I do quote, "And they who guard their private parts except from their wives or those their right hand possess, for indeed they will not be blamed." End quote. The phrase, "those their right hand possesses," refers to female slaves. This is a passage of the Qur'an justifying the rape of slaves. And this is a standard so inherent to the Qur'an that this is a repetition of an earlier passage. Something similar was said in chapter 4, verse 24, which reads, and I do quote, "And also prohibited to you are all married women, except those your right hand possesses. This is the decree of Allah upon you. and lawful to you are all others beyond these, provided that you seek them in marriage with gifts from your property, desiring chastity, not unlawful sexual intercourse." End quote. So of course this time it also informs us that even married captives may be raped. So we can see that the shit you are pulling here doesn't work. Touching other women is taboo for the in-group of your community. Those are the people it's referring to by not unlawful sexual intercourse, not the out-group. The out-group isn't protected to the same degree. Now ultimately, how does this lead to what we saw? Well, chapter 8 verse 39 is clear in that Muslims should fight until there is no more fitna, no disbelief. So theoretically, any and all non-Muslims can easily be classed as the enemy, and thus any women taken captive could easily be classed as slaves to be raped. These aren't massive leaps drawing from thousands of different things here and there. I just noted an allowance and a command, and I have an argument. You may not agree with this interpretation, but that's the problem with your religion, as with many religions. It's so damn watery that it takes whatever shape the believer wishes it to. Just as much as you can deny what these passages say, which the world can see, Mr. Ralph, the teacher of Islam, can do what they do and still claim themselves to be a deeply religious Muslim. And you can't claim otherwise. You can't use a no true Scotsman to say, they can't be Muslim, therefore I don't have to think about the consequences of my religion. Islamic ethics, as held in the Qur'an, are so incredibly poor due to their vagueness, if not heinous due to their contents.
First thing. Second thing, as a Muslim man, I cannot buy, transport, sell, give alcohol. So, a second thing is I cannot ply a girl with alcohol because I can't do alcohol. Okay. So, and as you know, as Jordan said on his video, that now he's a Muslim, he doesn't has less opportunity to be a groomer if he wanted to be. Not because you can't touch alcohol, you can't be alone with a girl. So this is a nonsense.
I mean, not really. The consumption of said substances are kind of taught against in chapter 5 verse 90, specifically because Muhammad wanted his warring nation to succeed and being drunk isn't the best way to achieve that. But nowhere does the Qur'an actually prohibit the drinking outright. It even says it has uses in chapter 2 verse 219, and the Qur'an doesn't even touch upon the sale or purchase of alcohol. It's mentioned in the hadiths, but much like the Qur'an, all Muslims pick and choose which parts they believe in and adhere to. That's why we have devout Muslims who preach child marriage as a divine standard, since the hadith state that Aisha was 9 when she was raped by Prophet Muhammad, whilst other Muslims just cry out, "It's just a hadith." And yet both of the standards being discussed, so raping children and the purchase and supplying of alcohol, are found in one of the 6 major hadith collections. So which is it? Do the hadiths mean more, and thus Muhammad raped a 9-year-old girl? Or do they mean nothing, and your argument is total crap? Sorry to put you in a bad situation.
Now, I'm happy to say they were Pakistani grooming gangs, in particular Rotherham, because their identity was Pakistani, because that was their heritage. Not their way of life, their heritage. So if you want to define it that way, that is not too much. I'm happy with that. But Muslim, absolute garbage.
Except, as already noted, some of the figures were teachers of the faith, certainly of a higher level than some beatneck street preacher who asked his viewers to help him steal by abusing the PayPal friend and family system. PayPal, as a courtesy, introduced that system for friends and family to transfer for free, since it's annoying to have to pay to send birthday money to friends and family. Businesses, meanwhile, including production groups active on YouTube, have to pay fees for the service. That is, unless you are a registered charity, which you have registered charity status for, in which case you wouldn't be telling your followers to, quote, please use the friend or family option to avoid PayPal fees. Again, this is an abuse of the system to effectively steal from PayPal. Meanwhile, the Qur'an chapter 5 verse 38 states, "As for the thief, the male and the female, amputate their hands in recompense for what they committed as a deterrent punishment from Allah, and Allah is exalted in might and wise." End quote. That's not ambiguous nor a hadith, so if you're at all sincere about the crap you are spouting here, then I expect to see a very drastic change in your physical appearance in your next video. Do you have the balls to stand by what you say and carry out the punishment demanded of you by Allah, or is this just what I suspect it to be? A smokescreen designed to protect a no true Scotsman. Either way, I expect to see a result, so chop chop.
Now here's the irony. What values were these men expressing? Were they expressing Islamic values? No. Now, were they expressing British values? Well, alcohol is a British value, and sex outside of marriage is a British value. So, to be honest with you, you could say they were westernized or Britishized Pakistanis. Yeah? Because they're using it, they're adopting a culture that doesn't belong to Islam. They're adopting the culture of where they live. And you people are always saying we should adopt the culture of where we live. So you're actually encouraging Muslim men to go and drink alcohol and have girls outside of marriage and all. You're happy with this, but Islam prohibits it. So first thing, let's get this out of the way. This is not a Muslim gang. Because if Islam taught this, you'd have a point, but it doesn't, so you don't.
See, when I say that fundamentalist Muslims, much like fundamentalist Christians, don't understand the notions of informed consent, I don't usually believe this to actually be the case. I think they just ignore it for certain arguments. You, however, genuinely don't seem to understand informed consent. Informed consent is a value many of us have in the West. We don't just hold it, we defend it. Now, the Qur'an certainly doesn't understand informed consent, as seen in the facts that A, you can have slaves, and B, you can rape said slaves, and the same is true for your prophet in raping Aisha. Now, some of the girls were plied with alcohol, which is not actually forbidden by the Qur'an, by the way, yet others were kept quiet with food and money, neither thing being haram. And also, this was in some of the instances these substances were used. You've taken some instances and applied it to all instances. Again, the biggest trap is the emotional aspect. This bullshit excuse also fails to explain the status of women in parts of the Middle East and in Syria with the Islamic State. You may cherry-pick certain passages, but so do they. Hence the problem.
There's 3 steps that I truly believe that if we employ these 3 steps, we have a chance of stopping this nastiness. There's 3 parts to this that I think we need to address. The first part is, of course, the rapists. Men, this is for you guys. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your race is. Stop raping girls. Stop grooming girls. Stop giving gifts to girls and encouraging them to come and be alone with you and then doing what you want with them. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care if you're a white man doing it. I don't care if you're a Hindu doing it or a Muslim doing it. Stop it. This is my personal plea. Stop it. If you're a Muslim, this is completely against Islam and you're harming the reputation of Muslims and Islam by your disgusting actions.
Note how the primary justification you gave for Muslims not raping people was that it gave Islam a bad reputation. Not that it's a vile act that destroys lives of the victims. I mean, these sorts of videos, which are not only spoken, but then viewed and edited and then uploaded, give me a great deal of insight into your priorities. You decided to lead with it gives Islam a bad name rather than it destroys lives. That really tells me a lot in which comment you decided to lead with.
Second thing, if you know of anybody who's doing this, If you know your local takeaway or your local taxi driver who takes advantage of vulnerable girls and you think it might be a joke, expose them. Because if we don't, we need to expose them, we need to report them to the police, and they need to be punished by the full extent of the law. Now, I know you guys would love to see them victims of Sharia law. I've heard so many times, castrate them, string them up, whatever, but we can't. Expose them, report them to the law. Police, if there is any cover-up for fear of racism, please forget that nonsense. Yeah, expose them, because you know what they're doing to our community, how they're making Islam look, and you look at destroying the lives of these girls. So it needs to end.
Finally, you decided to tag on the fact that many people are having their lives destroyed to the end of your segment. I was a little worried there for a second that you wouldn't manage to hastily cram it in at the end. Also, people have been reporting it for years. That's the controversy, the discussion as to why the police failed to act. When I started this video, I'd hoped for some sort of intelligent conversation about, I don't know, possibly lack of police care for working class communities, maybe that played some role in their inaction, to which I could respond by discussing the hyper-policing of working community areas. But no, it seems all you want to do is play No True Scotsman with deeply religious Muslims, since it makes Islam look bad.
So my first step is what? Scum, rapists, stop it. Okay, I can't say any more than that. Scum are going to be scum, rapists are going to be rapists. That's as much as I can do. But in Islam, we have this thing. If I see injustice or if I see haram, I can try and stop it with my hand. If I can't stop it with my hand, if I don't have the power to stop it with my hand, then the second level is what? With my tongue. And if I can't stop it with my tongue, then I hate it in my heart. So right now, I'm trying to stop it with my tongue. That's as much as I can do, and of course I hate it in my heart. Okay, so the first step to stopping this grooming gang nonsense? Rapists, please leave girls alone. Now if the rapists don't leave the girls alone, that they ignore this, or they think that they have a right to do this, then the second step is what? We need to remove the availability of vulnerable girls, because they're preying on vulnerable girls. So now society has to step up to the plate now. Because we don't live in a third world country, and we don't live in a disaster zone where there's girls that have been orphaned and such. We live in 21st century Blighty, 21st century Great Britain. How can we have 1,400 girls in Rotherham, 1,000 girls in Telford, neglected, thrown away, no one cared about them? I don't get it. We need an inquiry into this. What is going on in our societies that neglects girls on this scale, on this industrial scale? So the second step is society needs to step up the plate, and it needs to work out how these girls became vulnerable and do something about that. Because if you take away the prey, the predator has no chance. But if you leave these girls vulnerable, the scum are always going to be scum.
We have reports of parents doing everything they could to try and get the police to act on the issue, and there is a multi-million-pound investigation underway to find out why the police didn't do something. Again, the primary suspect are concerns over being accused of racism by people such as yourself. It's an all too Islamic way of thinking to abuse the victim to stop others from committing a crime. You can't just lock children up and throw away the key. But you can dismantle certain social perceptions, such as those responsible for police being afraid of coming forward because there might be backlash from the Islamic community in tackling organised child rape. But moving on from that, the idea that rape only affects those not cared about is disgusting. It's vile. It's a spit in the face of every parent who did everything they could, yet their child was raped. I was raped in a domestic violence refuge. My mum had got us out of an abusive household to great risk of herself. Sadly, she didn't have the psychic ability to detect the predator in what should have been a safe area. Outside of the refuge and the walled-off garden bit, which was topped with glass, I was never allowed out of an adult sight. And yet, I was still raped in the refuge itself. Your willingness to look for social causes in the victim and not the culprits amounts to nothing more than victim blaming. It's disgusting.
Now, I've heard it said that these scumbags only prey on white English girls because they're seen as trash because they're not Muslim. Utter garbage. I'll explain it again to you. Vulnerability here is the key. When a girl is vulnerable, this is what the predator will prey on. Now, the Muslim girl, in the majority of cases, will be in a family that cares for them, that doesn't neglect them, that doesn't allow them free sex with whichever lad they choose to be their boyfriend that day. It doesn't allow this. You see, a predator with a white English girl can pass himself off as her boyfriend. So when someone sees him, who's that? She says, my boyfriend, because she thinks he's a boyfriend. But a Muslim girl cannot do that because we don't have that value. So if you think that it's because they're white they're being preyed upon, no. The key is what? It's because they're vulnerable. And like I said, society needs to take responsibility for that.
You sick fucker. You truly are a disgrace upon humanity. You're a lying bastard who has completely rewritten what occurred to absolve your religion and its communities of any responsibility it may have had. When we have reports of family members being at police stations day after day trying to get them to do something, how the hell do you come to the conclusion that they just didn't care enough? Again, you just want to shift any analysis away from the rapist and put the blame squarely on the victim. It's victim blaming. That's sick. That's twisted. That shows us just how ethically void you are as a person. Teach your men not to rape. Don't demand victims be stripped of their freedom.
And the third step, now this is the controversial part because I'm not victim blaming here.
I think we're well and truly beyond victim blaming here. Simply denying it means nothing.
But girls need to wise up. Know there are predators out there hunting you. They are going to prey on your vulnerability. So let's say the scumbags don't stop raping. Let's say society continues to neglect you. Now it's on you. Now you need to wise up. You need to see when someone approaches you in this manner, you know what's going on. And you run the other way. Yeah? When as a child you were told, don't accept sweets from strangers? Just apply that to drugs and alcohol as well. And then you've got a chance. Because once you start taking alcohol and sweets and of strange men, know they're going to expect something in return. Don't be naive. Okay? Not blaming you girls. You're victims of a society and the scumbags. But you have a responsibility as well. Because if the society continues to neglect you, you need to wise up a little bit. Okay.
Women are already aware of the fact that there are predators out there. There's a reason many women walk with their keys in their hand when it's dark. The media literally bombards us with messages of not just rape, but grooming. Society has taken that responsibility to the degree of ludicrousness. In sociology, we call it the media opposites of crime, i.e. how violent crimes such as rape and murder are the most frequently portrayed, even though they're the least frequent crimes to actually occur. Your three excuses, two of which are victim blaming and one which isn't even a solution, means fuck all. It's easy for you to judge the victims in hindsight. It's a completely different matter at the time in reality.
Okay, so to summarise, if the scum continue to be scum, we cannot do anything about that, except exposing them and punish them according to the law. But we can make sure that the girls don't become in a vulnerable state so that it can be preyed upon, and we can teach the girls to wise up. So that's my three-pronged attack. Because you see, this is the way I see it. These girls are the victims. Don't let anyone say I'm blaming the victims. They are the victims and there's no blame upon them. They are victims of three things. They are the victims of what? A society that neglected them. They are victims of what? A scum who prey on their vulnerabilities. They're the victims of what? their own naivety. They are the victims here. They are the ones needing love and protection here. So if we can address that problems, then we'll make them less likely to be victims of these scam. Now here's the irony, just to end it. This is the amazing irony. According to the teachings of Islam, Islam would eradicate this problem overnight. If the people adhered to the teachings of Islam, there would be no such thing as grooming gangs.
Since the Qur'an fully upholds said practices as evidenced earlier, you're just talking total bollocks. And simply saying, I'm not victim blaming, doesn't make that true. You are victim blaming. You're making accusations without any basis or evidence. You're ignoring evidence available. You're just lying through your teeth. I mean, it boggles the mind. You're trying to turn everything about this conversation into some fault of the victim's background. You can't even handle some sort of social responsibility on behalf of the rapist background. It's just the same old crap we get from the Christian right when they tell someone, you should address better, you shouldn't address provocatively. You know? Like, it truly is just so vile. But the fact that you use this case as a means to preach, however, goes well and truly beyond vile. I mean, here's the question for you. If Islam and fears of Islamophobia didn't play a role, why aren't there other massive grooming gangs in the UK which have been allowed to operate for the past 40 years unchallenged? How did the numbers of the groomers grow? Because, you know, if it's within a certain community, surely someone who got invited to be part of these grooming gangs, they should have whistleblown. I mean, we have reports of burglars breaking in, finding child porn. They call the police knowing that they're going to be arrested, but honestly, they'd rather go to prison for a while than, you know, this child rapist go undetected. Why did none of the 80% which were from British Pakistani background, why didn't they report it? It's just... Another thing I just realised is, you know, we're often told that don't believe the media hype. Rapes are very rarely conducted by strangers or people that you just meet randomly. You know, rapes are most often conducted by family members or even family friends, so people who the family have known for a very long time. They're the most likely to actually rape you. That's for the rest of the society. Why is it different for yours? How do you explain that? How? So how about you stop trying to profit of this horrific crime? Why don't you have some damn decency for once in your life? Hi there. I just want to say a few things here at the end of the video before you go. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who's ever donated to the channel via Patreon, giving a special thanks to the following people: Hannah Banghart, Matthew Kovac, John Schoenrock, Alexander Williams, and Daniel Martinez. Your support has ensured this channel its ability to grow over the years, and for that we are truly thankful. I'd also like to ask that you comment down below and like this video, as well as subscribe and follow Essence Thought on Facebook and Twitter. Please also consider following Atheist Alliance International on Facebook, an organisation dedicated to helping atheists around the globe. Do note, any comments utilising language which insults others on the basis of perceived gender, sexuality, ethnicity or ability, both mental and physical, will be removed immediately and the commenter may be blocked on the moderator's discretion. Let's keep this space one which upholds the humanist values. Thank you for watching.